Today we're going to be changing the thermostat and gasket. This is a quick, simple solution to a lot of your heating and cooling problems. Today's service vehicle is a 1995 Chevrolet 5.7 liter Suburban. What we're going to do is we're going to change the thermostat and the gasket, which is located at the end of the upper radiator hose connected to the intake manifold. But first what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect our battery. Our thermostat is located in the thermostat housing, which is right in this area down low. You can see that we have 2 bolts and we have some electrical connections. We're really going to want to pay attention not to break these electrical connections because they go to our coolant temp sensor. So first what we're going to do is we're going to remove our radiator hose. And we're just going to lift that up. And we're going to wiggle this off. Sometimes they're pretty stubborn. Most of the time they're not. And then once we get it up, we're going to move this out of our way. You want to make sure this is up so no residual coolant goes onto our floor. So our thermostat is located inside the thermostat housing. We have 1 bolt, it looks like a nut, and another bolt. What we want to do is we really want to make sure not to break these connections. These are the ground connections for our coolant temp sensor. So let's go. What we're going to do is we're going to try to break this one first. And again, you want to make sure that we don't break the wires. You want to see if these wires are loose and they're going to come off. You want to make sure that when we replace them back on there, that they're nice and clean. You can see that these are green in color, and we're going to want to clean those up prior to reinstallation. Now that we removed our electrical connections from our stud, we're going to loosen these up. We're going to loosen this up. It's always a nice idea to loosen everything up before you remove any of them. Now that we have our bolts loose, let's just continue taking this out. And now you can see that our thermostat housing is free. And again, we're going to want to remember to replace this when we go back to connect everything together. So we're just going to lift up our thermostat housing, check the condition. We're going to remove our thermostat. You want to notice how it came out. This always goes towards the top, the flow to the engine. Prior to installing our new thermostat, what we're going to do is we're going to clean the gasket area and surface. We want to make sure there's no debris in this area. We want to make sure that it's actually dry also. We want to check to make sure that our replacement gasket is relatively the same as our old one. And this looks to appear to be correct. We're also going to make sure that our old thermostat and our replacement thermostat are the same in diameter. We're going to check the front and the back and the top. We're also going to check for its fit inside its surface. And we're also going to check the fit with our old one. About the same. Make sure the point goes towards the radiator. So we're just going to set this down. We're going to install our replacement gasket. Make sure it's dry, free of debris. We're going to inspect our housing. Make sure that it's clean. And make sure that our surface, where our gasket is clean of debris. We're going to install that right on top of there. Make sure that our gasket hasn't moved. We're going to take and we're going to start our bolts. We're going to make sure that we get this bracket for this sensor on there also. Once we have both started, we're going to tighten them down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our connections for our temperature sender are clean and free of debris. Just going to take a screwdriver, give them a couple little scrapes front and rear, get some of that green off of there. Or you can take some sandpaper, razor blade. We want to make sure that the connections are good and they're not brittle or broken. We're going to reinstall these. Now what we're going to do is we're going to secure our ground wires, and we want to make sure not to over tighten these, again because these wires are fairly brittle and they want to twist and make a poor connection. Want to hold them so they don't turn while you're turning the nut. And you want to make sure they're secure. Now that we have our thermostat and thermostat housing secure and our wires, we're going to reinstall our radiator hose. We're just going to take this, we're going to give it a little wiggle on, make sure it gets down past the little rib in the thermostat housing, and we're going to secure it. What we're going to do is we're going to check leaks at this connection, our thermostat housing connection, and our radiator petcock connection to make sure we don't have any leaks after we fill our radiator. So let's fill the radiator and we'll go back to these areas and check for leaks. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove our radiator cap, give it a slight push, and turn, remove, set it to the side. What we're going to do is we're going to add our coolant and top it off. Now you notice this is like an orangey red color. There's also a green color. If you took green out, you want to replace it with green. If you've taken the red out, you want to replace it with red. The two are not compatible with each other for proper cooling. Since we've already had our radiator hose off and our thermostat housing out, we may have to fill this a couple times to get it to the proper operating level. After we run it, we will check it again. We want to be able to make sure that this is full and our reservoir is at the proper level also. Now what we're going to do is we're going to check our coolant level in our overflow bottle. So what we're going to do, we're just going to take our little cap off here. And we're going to identify where it needs to be, which it looks like it's almost proper level there. We're just going to add a little bit. We're going to secure our coolant tank lid, make sure it's properly on, and we're going to wipe up the residual mess. Now what we're going to do is we're going to install our radiator cap. We're going to line up the marks on the radiator and the cap. We're going to press it down and turn it clockwise and make sure it's secure. We're going to connect our battery. We're going to start our vehicle, bring it up to operating temperature, and check for leaks. Now that we brought our engine up to operating temperature, we're going to check for coolant leaks around our radiator hose and our thermostat base. Everything looks great. After the engine cools, what we're going to do is we're going to check our radiator again, and everything should be fine.